Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how Boris Johnson seems to be losing the support of much of the Tory media, which has been instrumental in propping him up over the past few years. Are they now deciding that Johnson's time is up? But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, the front pages of the Sunday papers today will not have been much fun for Boris Johnson or his allies. And it's easy for politicians to say, oh, we don't care what's in the papers, we're doing this and we're doing that and we're delivering on the people's promises. They all care, all of them. They have to care because the mainstream media in this country is hugely influential and most of it is more interested in politics than journalism. And Boris Johnson is a deeply vain man. He absolutely cares what the papers have to say. The Sunday Telegraph ran the main headline about Johnson ignoring warnings about Chris Pincher's previous conduct. The Sunday Mirror doing the same. They're not a pro-Tory paper like the Telegraph though, so it'll be unpleasant for him, but of less concern. The Observer, another one that's not pro-Tory, but they were talking about an official investigation into the 40 new hospitals that turns out aren't 40 new hospitals. Who knew? The Sunday Times, which is a Tory paper, another story about Chris Pincher's sexual assaults, but it's the Mail on Sunday that was the most damaging of all. The same paper that has raked up no end of mud to try and protect Boris Johnson has now come out with a headline saying that Johnson knew about Pincher's groping behaviour 2 years ago. Only the Sunday Express was ignoring these damaging stories against the government. And even they weren't exactly defending him, just trying to distract with talks of tax cuts that'll never happen. Well, not for the people who need them anyway. Now, when it comes to the Telegraph, the Times, the Express and the Mail, 4 major newspapers, it's 8 really because they have a separate Sunday paper, they all push for Conservative governments. Come the general election, they will fight tooth and nail to get the Tories elected, no matter who's leading them. Like if Boris Johnson, for whatever reason, under whatever circumstances, in an act of desperation, were to trigger a general election this year, there would be an immediate truce and they would all fall into line behind him. They might chunter a bit, but they would fall in line behind him. But right now, they are making it crystal clear to their readers that Johnson is not fit to govern. The attacks ranged against him cover incompetence, immorality, corruption, even just good old-fashioned lack of backbone. Take your pick. There's no let-up for him. But the Mail turning against him is a little surprising given that a couple of months ago, Paul Dacre returned to head it up again along with the other outlets in the same stable. And it looked like Johnson had his staunch ally back at the paper. They could have done what the Express are doing. They could just ignore the scandals, focus on the cost of living. That'd find a ready audience. But they're going in hard on Johnson. Where other outlets are questioning Johnson's conduct over the Chris Pincher scandal. Was it really right to make him Deputy Chief Whip? But they're essentially focusing on the perpetrator, the man who's really guilty here, Chris Pincher. But for the Mail on Sunday, no, it's Boris Johnson who's in their sights. And you begin to wonder if Rothmere, the man who basically owns the Mail and the Mail on Sunday, has decided that Johnson is going to cost the party the next election. That there's no prospect of the scandals dying down, that the culture wars aren't working, that he's become as much of a liability to their interests as Theresa May had by 2019. And the response against her was nothing short of savage. And Dan Hodges, who writes for the Mail, has been nothing short of savage himself over the past few days. He's been reporting that Johnson has denied knowing about Pincher's issues, but also reporting that this is a lie. He's even said that Boris Johnson is lying. He's been suggesting that this will be worse than Partygate for Johnson. Now, I thought that's an odd statement. Partygate was so serious for Johnson, and still is, because it's a direct betrayal of people who lost loved ones. Like it cuts deep to a lot of people. It was making ordinary voters look like fools. The Chris Pincher scandal, now this is serious, but do the public really care about it more than Partygate? No. So how could it be more serious for Johnson than Partygate? Well, under normal circumstances, of course it wouldn't, but the media could make it more serious if they wanted to. The British tabloids especially are able to make the most serious threat against the country disappear in people's minds by simply not reporting on it. But they are also able to make the most mundane things seem like the end of the world by reporting on it every day in increasingly sensationalist terms. I wonder if we've found ourselves in a situation whereby the power behind these outlets think it's time to get rid of Johnson. Either because they think he is now doing permanent damage to the party's chances, damage that won't be repaired if they wait, or maybe they think they've got their preferred replacement ready now. Now, if it's the latter, I wonder who it is. Johnson will no doubt use these latest attacks to push the idea that the media are biased against him. He is very much like Donald Trump in so many ways. It's the way of narcissists, isn't it? I mean, they're awesome, aren't they? These narcissists, they're absolutely awesome people. So anyone criticising them must have an axe to grind. It's the only thing that makes sense. Never mind that these papers covered for his biggest cock-ups and promoted him to the public in 2019. No. The media is biased against him. But if it were biased against him, how come both the Mail and the Times dropped a story recently about how Boris Johnson tried to get a well-paid job, paid for with public money, for his unqualified then mistress and now wife? Byline Times points to the massive amount of money that the government gave to some mainstream newspapers during the pandemic as a form of COVID relief. What they did is they placed very expensive advertisements in their papers to prop up revenue losses as a result of lockdown. But not all newspapers got the money. And of those who did, some got more than others. There could be a suggestion that it's a little bit like the relationship with Tory donors. Donate to our party and we'll give you a handsome return in the form of public money. Maybe there's a similar arrangement in return for support rather than donations from the media. You know, we've also seen several years of Johnson bullying the media by, for example, excluding unfavourable journalists from press conferences. Like, press conferences used to take place at Westminster where Boris Johnson and his spokesperson had no say over which journalists were there and could ask questions. Now they take place in Downing Street where he can control who comes in. The BBC have been coming under increasing Tory control for years, but it's ridiculous now. I would think no greater example exposes this than Andrew Marr. When he worked for the BBC, on a weekly basis, he would bring up the most pointless questions for Labour politicians and refuse to move on to more topical questions, even when they answered them. You know, when it came to Tory politicians, though, he would ask a question, and no matter whether the answer was truthful or not, or whether they even answered it at all, he would just move on. There were almost no cases of follow-up questions and absolutely no cases of calling out lies. But Marr no longer works for the BBC. He's doing other things now. And now people are saying, hang on a minute, he's reporting the truth. He's actually scrutinising the government. Oh, he can be a good journalist when he wants to be. Now, how can a journalist change the way they scrutinise the government so much in so short a time? It just shows you the editorial control that exists at the BBC now to suppress journalism when it comes to the government. Boris Johnson can have no complaints about the media. If a Labour Prime Minister was to pull half the stuff he's getting grief for, the media would be relentless in exposing it. Frankly, a Labour Prime Minister could have got us through the worst of the pandemic with a third of the number of deaths and a fraction of the number of long COVID cases, and that same media that hailed Johnson's brilliance would denounce the Labour PM in this alternate universe as a butcher who killed thousands. Boris Johnson is not a Prime Minister of substance, however. He needs the media. He doesn't have natural supporters in the Tory party, only those who either still think he can win them the next election or those who are getting paid extra as ministers who couldn't hope for the same position under a more sane leader. Bear in mind, there are some Tory MPs right now. If Johnson is ousted, they lose tens of thousands of pounds a year. He's also lost the trust of the public. He's not going to win anyone back over with his policies because he only has one, being Prime Minister. He's not going to deliver the levelling up that he promised the Red War because he's got no follow through. He's not going to deliver the tax cuts that he promised the Blue War because there's no growth in the economy. He's not going to deliver the Brexit benefits to any of them because there aren't any. He's got nothing to justify his position other than illusion. an illusion that was created by the media that he used to work for. They could choose to maintain that illusion. If they find it in their interest, they could absolutely do that. But it's getting harder and harder for them to do it with each passing scandal. But they can also destroy him anytime they choose. Think about the 2 weeks of Beergate that the Mail ran to try and kneecap Labour for the local elections. Now imagine if they gave Boris Johnson similar treatment here. They wouldn't even have to make anything up this time. So it'll be interesting to see how they decide to report events over this summer. It'll also be interesting to see how various outlets choose to report on the Privileges Committee investigation that I still think remains the single greatest danger to Boris Johnson's position. But as things stand, it's looking like the Mail may have turned on Johnson. The Times were already against him, and the Telegraph, which is his former employer, are a little bit more ambivalent. But if Johnson cannot count on the support of the Mail, that's huge, because their readership are exactly the sort of people Johnson needed to win in 2019. Not that this is necessarily a moment to cheer as such, because if the Mail are turning on Johnson, if that's what they're doing, it's because they're trying to rescue the Tories, not because they've decided to represent the public or he's gone too far. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.